Welcome to this interview with the multi-talented Professor Dr. Yhnell. We'll be discussing topics such as your genetic material online, is it safe? And AI, its impact on higher education. Do we need to change how we do higher education? Stay tuned for all these amazing topics and more.
Perfect. How is it over there? Are you feeling the heat?
Yeah, I am actually. It's meant to be cooler today, but apparently not.
It is too hot over here.
Yeah, not ideal.
Not ideal at all. Okay, so perfect. So hello, Dr. Yhnell. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh,
Thank you so much for joining. I think the last time we spoke was at the FameLab 20-year anniversary, but we go back to 2019 FameLab. That's when I first met you, and that's when I first saw your talk, started following your work as a neuroscientist, as an all-rounder. So without further ado, can you let us know who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, sure. Those 6 years flew by, didn't they?
I know.
It does seem like yesterday in some ways, but yes, we first met at FameLab at Cheltenham Science Festival. And since then, I've been doing lots of work in education and science communication. So FameLab is all about communicating science to people who don't have those expertise in science. And I currently work at Cardiff University as a reader in neuroscience, but also as Associate Dean for Equity, Diversity and Inclusion.
Ooh, what does that mean?
Good question. Yeah, so that role is all about helping to kind of level the playing field and make sure that we have policies and procedures in place that allow everybody to feel welcome and included in all of the work that we do.
Oh, brilliant. That's great to hear. So did you say that's in Cardiff University?
Yes, over in Cardiff, over the bridge from Cheltenham Science Festival, yeah.
I've always wanted to go to Cardiff. Do you speak Gaelic? Is that taught?
So Welsh, and I speak a little bit of Welsh. I'm learning.
Okay.
Very keen learner of Welsh. I've got a good Duolingo streak going. But you're always very welcome. Come and visit us. Cardiff is a lovely city.
I'd love to visit Cardiff. So today's podcast, I wanted to just have a nice conversation with yourself. From the last our last FameLab talk, which was the 20th anniversary of FameLab, you spoke about a topic that I really wanted to get a bit more of your insights on, our genetic data and what that means in our current day and age. So could you let us know a bit more about why is our genetic data important and why should it be of concern?
Yeah, so the thing with FameLab is you've only got 3 minutes to talk about a topic, and it's quite a complex and ethical topic to talk about. But I used my little talk to talk about commercial genetic testing. So this is a type of genetic testing that's kind of sprung up in popularity over recent years, and it's all about commercial organizations creating these genetic tests, and they can tell you all sorts of different things. So they might be things about your family history, for example, or they might be relatively kind of fun and interesting things like your genetic susceptibility to prefer sweet or salty popcorn, or things like your health status as well. So I've become really interested in this because I used to work in the Huntington's disease clinic, so working with people impacted by Huntington's disease.
Yes.
And this is can you hear that?
Yeah.
Sorry, there's lots of the metal man collecting metal on my road, that is.
It sounds very jolly.
But I was really interested in this because genetics is really complex. Huntington's disease is a condition that's quite unique in that it's caused by a single gene. Whereas other conditions, they might have genetic components or various genes that, yeah, like increase your risk, but it might be modified by like lifestyle factors and things like that. So I am really interested in this because I just want people to be aware of some of the risks, but also some of the opportunities. So there are consent processes in place, which are really important. There have been new discoveries that have cropped up about people because they've given access to their genetic information. So that's really positive. But there are also risks with these types of things as well. So people might be diagnosed with conditions that they haven't heard of before. There are now various support groups dedicated to people who have found out various things about their family heritage, like their parents aren't who they thought they were, for example, or they might have relatives that they didn't know about as well. So it's a really interesting area. And for me, it's all about knowledge is power, right? So understanding some of the implications of that. And as someone who worked in that patient clinic with people who would often have years of genetic counselling before they get their genetic test results, I think it's just a really interesting space to talk about.
Wow. You said, so basically, do you think that those further ramifications of discovering certain things that an individual didn't know beforehand, do you think these companies need to cater for, I don't know, ways to remedy that? So do they need to provide extra services if somebody found out that they had something that they didn't even expect to find? Should they cater for that? Should they pick out the design?
It's a really interesting point, and I think lots of them are now. So they are incorporating things like genetic counselling within that offer. But also I think it's about understanding that process so people aren't kind of caught off guard. And these are things that are really complex. I think that's important to
highlight.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, our genetic status, our personal genetic information, which is highly confidential, is really important. So the genetic tests that I'm interested in often are done by like cheek swabs or spit samples, so they're not invasive at all. And there are other really interesting components to this. So when you do a genetic test, often it's screened against databases, and they are by and large catered towards the Western world. So that speaks to some of the equity, diversity, inclusion work that I've done. Also things like false positives. So that is giving someone a result that says they have something when actually they don't, or equally false negatives, telling people they don't have something when actually they do, and rates of those as well. And a lot of the work that I've been doing since we first met is all about increasing public awareness and understanding of science, the fact that science doesn't always have the answers, and science changes and adapts and evolves. So I think generally there is this perception that, oh, you know, the science has told us this, and often it does, but we are getting new scientific evidence and data and research all of the time. So it's really important that we're open to things changing as well.
That's a really powerful thing that you said there, being open to the change, because I think, like you just said, science it's not a fixed thing. So people sometimes think that when there's a discovery, that's it. When something new comes into the public, they may say, oh, scientists need to go back to the drawing board. But scientists are always at the drawing board. Even if there's a discovery, there's still other things to learn about that, because one insight doesn't mean we know everything. It's an insight that can be used in particular situations or particular ways. So in relation to FameLab, which is the science communication, one of the largest science communication competitions in the world, you said something there about it being complex. So how does FameLab help or how does FameLab help with something like that, especially with the 3-minute format that it has? How does it help?
Yeah, so it's a really difficult thing to do, to condense complex information into a very limited time. And as a scientist and as somebody who does lots of work educating and training the scientists of the future at a university, I don't think we train our scientists in communicating. So I think sometimes we kind of fall into a trap of thinking, oh, that's a really easy thing to do because it's just 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But actually distilling that really complex information, like you've done this too, you know this, is really, really hard. And to do that well, it's like, you know, things like the lay summary of a big grant or a proposal. People often leave that to the end, but they shouldn't, because that's really, really challenging to do well. So, you know, we were both really fortunate as part of FameLab. We got training in how to do this. But it's not something that we really do. So I do lots of teaching in science communication. But for me, it goes back to how we reward and recognize our scientists as well, because when I was doing academic research, I love doing research, but for me, particularly with the work I did in Huntington's disease, we could be doing groundbreaking research in a lab, which was great, but if it wasn't communicated and if it didn't directly benefit people who have that lived experience of living with a condition, for me that wasn't worthwhile. So the communication part is really important, but also there's kind of layers to it for me. So yes, it's about communicating your science and your message, but in doing that, we are raising the profile of science, we are talking about diverse voices in science, and ultimately inspiring, you know, the scientists of the future too. So whether that's more diversity in terms of ethnicity or gender or everyone's individual story, so that, you know, people who are the future generations can see themselves as scientists in the future.
That's brilliant. That's pretty brilliant. So with your, I've got 2 questions. So with working with the Huntington's diseases, what were some things that something that you found out whilst working with that, whether that be via the research itself and the communication aspect of it? So what cool things, I know it's not a cool disease, of course it isn't, but what cool things did you find out?
Yeah, so my work in Huntington's disease, although it was a while ago now, was all about computerized cognitive training. So it was looking at whether that might be helpful. It was a feasibility study, so it was quite early stage. But I was able to improve people's well-being on that study. And it was very small scale, but it was really helpful to them. And I don't know whether this is a cool thing, but something that really struck me in working in that environment was one day we had somebody come in who'd just been diagnosed with this disease. And for those folks who don't necessarily know, Huntington's disease is a neurodegenerative condition. It's a condition that's caused by a single gene. It has motor symptoms and cognitive symptoms and psychiatric symptoms, and it's hereditary, so it can be passed through generations. And this person had come into the clinic and they had with them a academic paper. So it was a new kind of research finding, and they brought it in and they asked me to explain it to them because they'd just been diagnosed with this condition that was absolutely going to impact their life and, you know, future generations' lives. And they had gone out of their way to do the research to find this information, but because of the way it was written, it wasn't accessible to them. So, you know, and this, I want to be really clear, that's not their fault. This is the way that academia has been designed. We do lots of work in science communication on different audiences. And academic papers are not inherently designed to be read by, you know, like members of the public. But that's an issue for me because the research that's contained within that academic paper, that's often written in really impenetrable language, has a direct impact on, in this case, people living with Huntington's disease. So lots of scientists are doing like lay summaries, or they might be doing like videos to help get that message out there. but it's not something we would do kind of often, if you like.
Okay, so that in itself, is it, so it's not part of the academic process?
Not necessarily, no.
I see. And do you think it should be more part of the academic process?
I think it's super difficult because what we're essentially doing there is asking academics to do more. So write this paper, also do this video and do this lay summary. But for me, in the kind of 6 years or so since we first met, I've been really reflecting on my skills, and FameLab definitely helped me to do that. So I have really strong skills in communication, and other people don't. Other people are really strong in like the minutiae of research and, you know, working in the lab, for example, which I'm not. So I think it's about deploying scientists, the different skill sets we have as scientists. So I think often we think scientists just have a particular set of skills, but I think within science there are different kind of types of scientists.
True.
And I think we kind of need to recognize that more, so need to be a bit more flexible in that too.
Okay, so do you think in the context of academia, do you think it could be like an add-on module, or a module that could be taken on board?
So I think it needs to be a core part, because the moment you have something as optional, you're saying, I think it's not necessarily as important.
True. Yeah.
But I also think it's a really interesting time for universities at the moment. Universities are rightly questioning what their purpose is, you know, what they offer. And I think they're right to be doing that. But I also think our students are absolutely holding universities to account too. So when you come out of university with a degree, what skills have you learned? And particularly in the age that we're living in, and I know we'll probably come to AI later, you know, it's my job as a lecturer and as a teacher isn't necessarily to just impart information anymore. I don't think it ever was, but particularly during the kind of technological revolution that we're living in, my students can go and find out factual information from a range of different sources, you know. And is it a effective use of their time if our educators are just, you know, parroting out information? That's we're evolving in terms of like our educational provision and what we can offer, but also what the expectations of our students are.
I absolutely love that. You put that very eloquently. I absolutely love that. I think that's going to take us to the next part. I think we should go to the next part now. So this is more questions on, I think this is the intersection between what the work that I'm doing and the work that you're doing. So I'm extremely interested in the realm of utilizing AI within education, science education, and the science industry itself. So when it comes to education, AI is here. It's disrupting education. That's a fact. It's here. And the question is, what do we do about it? How do we evolve as you described? So I think one thing I do think is that when you look at the curriculum, no two educational system is the same. Even in the UK, there's no there's an overarching curriculum, but there is other places that are doing different things, different ways of teaching, maybe active learning, etc. How do you think universities could really optimize with AI? Do you think they need to change the curriculum itself? The way, like you said, about facilitating education as opposed to spouting things at the student? Because as scientists, we are not only meant to just remember things. Sometimes it's the questions that we ask and how to utilize these tools to solving these things. So how do you think the universities can really change that, in your opinion, from your view?
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say universities often don't like change. They can be places where change is very difficult, and particularly the pace of change. So I agree. I think teaching scientific skills is about analysis and critique. And yes, it is about helping people to understand basic facts in science, but it's also about helping people to critique them. So I think in terms of AI use, we need to be using it ethically. We need to be really open and transparent and give really clear guidance to our students. So there is ongoing work that's kind of coming out now looking at student attitudes towards AI use in higher education. And it's really interesting because for me, there are access and inclusion issues to AI in terms of platforms that are paid for and are not paid for. So the moment you have different platforms that there's some sort of payment involved, there's an access issue. But also there are issues around digital literacy and helping students to use it. Lots of students are concerned about plagiarism as well. So I think we should be encouraging use of AI. Some people would disagree with me on that, but that's my personal view. And I think rather than looking at the product, we should be looking at the process. So how are we using AI? So rather than saying to students, please write me an essay on Huntington's disease, what I would like to do is say to students, okay, you can use an AI platform to write an essay on Huntington's disease, but what I want you to do is then take that and critique it. So is that essay factually accurate? Does it summarize all of the information? Is it biased towards particular characteristics or groups? So what we're doing there is really training those critical analysis skills rather than just accepting the information as it comes out of the AI generated model. And I think that's really important because one of the key skills that I hope that I help people to learn and understand at university is how to take information and critique it. In the modern world that we live in, there is so much information, can be so overwhelming, and we need to work out, okay, which of this information is verifiable, which is accurate, how can we sort it all out, because there's so much of it.
True. So that method of because we know like AI, we've used the systems. Sometimes the information that they give is not only sometimes is it not accurate, sometimes it's wrong. And then sometimes it's irrelevant to a particular situation. So at one point I used it to understand just the basics of exercising and the benefits of exercising and sweat, etc. It gave an information that it was it said sweating gives out a lot of toxins. You detoxify through your sweat, but that's not actually true. If you actually know the science of sweat, very minute toxins can come out of the sweat, that's true. But the way it was worded is that as if the more you sweat, you are detoxifying yourself. And then I wrote again, is that true? Does sweat fully detoxify the body? Because the way it was written is as if it will fully detoxify the body. And then it said, no, it doesn't detoxify. In fact, it only does a very small percentage of toxins. And I was like, huh. But if somebody didn't know the underlining of how sweat works, they would just be like, oh yeah, I can detoxify my whole body.
Yeah. And also if they didn't know to ask those questions, right? So not only are we, imparting information, but we're training people to ask the relevant questions. And that's really important. And sometimes you just don't know what you don't know.
Yes, true.
And
Yeah.
that's really hard to counter.
Yeah.
And it's those subtleties, like that example is a really interesting one, because that's like relatively subtle phrasing, which the interpretation can then go kind of different ways from that, right? So yeah, that's a really interesting example. And I hope, because we're getting towards graduation now at universities, that my students come away with the ability to continually question and continually ask questions. And that's really important to me as well. So yeah, and science is never done. That's one of the challenges of, my job and my career, is that I will, when I'm no longer here one day, we will still have not answered many questions, and that's one of the challenges, the more you know, the more you don't know, right? So it's more and more questions, which is a lovely part of my job, but also can be a bit overwhelming sometimes.
I can imagine. What would you say is why did you become a lecturer? Why did you get into science? Can you let us know a little bit about what inspired you?
So I was really, really fortunate. I had great science teachers at school. And I think your experiences at school, we'll give them a shout out, Mrs. Adams and Mrs. Thomas. They were amazing.
Shout out Mrs. Adams, Mrs. Thomas.
Yeah, there you go. And I think it's really actually quite scary how your school experiences can shape your life. So if you had a great teacher, or if you had an awful teacher, that can really put you on a particular path. But anyway, I was fortunate. I had these great biology teachers. And then I decided I wanted to go to uni, but didn't really have much experience. No one in my family had been to uni before. So I studied biochemistry, because I thought, I like biology, I like chemistry, I'll just put them together in a bit of a biochemistry thing. And then I finished that and decided to make a bit of a transition to do a PhD in neuroscience. And then I did that, and then I worked in the lab during my PhD, but then wanted to go a bit more clinical for a fellowship. So after that, I did more research, and then I became a lecturer in 2019. So it was roundabout just after we did Fame Lab. Because I love education. I love helping to be part of someone's journey and supporting them and guiding them and cheerleading for them. But I also think it's really important to consider the issues around widening participation as well. Coming from that background where I didn't have a lot of experience in, what universities were or how they operate, things like that. And I love it. It's really great. And I think universities are absolutely just part of the picture, particularly in education, kind of post-school. But yeah, that's how I kind of got to where I am.
That's amazing. So shout out to your teachers that helped nurture the spark. That's pretty great. So you had that spark, and having those teachers that helped to nurture it. And also I'm pretty sure you had programs and things that you were excited about as well, that was outside of school, like TV programs. Did any TV programs inspire you as well, or help nurture that spark?
Yeah, so I think, incredible science communicators. So obviously David Attenborough, Professor Alice Roberts as well, as a woman in science, is amazing. But also,
wait, was she not part of Fame Lab as well? Like the early part of Fame Lab?
No way. I don't know.
I think she was.
That's a revelation. Wow. I think so. Wow. Okay. But for me, it's just always asking questions, and I'm sure like my mum and dad hated this, but growing up, but it's a scientific mind, right? Always wanted to know more. I remember coming out of like a biology A-level class one day, and the penny dropped that I was like, wow, that like there's so much to learn, but equally I could know anything about everything. So where you kind of focus your energies, and for me, I I was a bit odd in school in that I did biology, chemistry, and a philosophy and ethics A level. So I always kind of had an eye on like bigger picture. Like, yes, I love science, absolutely. But how do we apply it to like everyday life? There are loads of ethical dilemmas in Huntington's disease and in genetic testing. So it's kind of all come a bit full circle, really.
That's amazing. Yeah, the philosophical studies, it links in. It makes sense why you're doing science communication.
Yeah, there we go. See, it all makes sense, even if you retrofit it.
Exactly. They say it only makes sense when you look back. So
yeah,
that's pretty great. Yeah, thank you very much for sharing your story. I think when it comes to nurturing that spark, I wish I had great teachers. When I was growing up, I didn't really have great teachers to nurture my spark. For me, it was more my journey into the line of work that I'm doing now was quite challenging in the sense that I had great parents, but I grew up in quite a rough environment, I'd say. So it wasn't easy for me to relate my passion with a lot of people because where I grew up was quite rough. It was very dangerous. I'm not gonna pretend, but I had a love for wanting to learn things. My creativity, most of my friends, their creativity mostly went into like music, went into business and other things like that. But the sciences wasn't popular or wasn't championed. But the thing is, for me, I was just so interested in learning about how things worked. I always wanted to see how things worked on a fundamental level, how we can use it in our daily lives. I just want to understand how things work. So my inspirations mostly came from like TV, TV, just like
what
you.
are we talking? What TV shows are we talking?
So back in the days, it was like Brainiac Science
Oh,
Abuse.
yes.
There was just like TV, like Star Trek, Star Wars, but I was more into like science fiction, fantasy.
Okay.
Yeah, those are my things that kind of got my interest. And back then, TV was populous. We were so much types of programs. You got your cartoons. You got there's so much. There was so much, and then I had like the Inkata back in the days. Do you remember the Inkata?
I do. That sprung back a lot of memory of like dial-up internet and Inkata. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Wow.
I'd be on that searching different things that I loved. So yeah. So the journey has been a challenging one, but in a good way because I think if you've got the spark, I think it's just important to just follow it, follow that curiosity. I think is extremely important. But yeah, I think we're gonna wrap up with some few rapid fire questions. You ready?
Yeah, just about.
Okay, so what's one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self starting in science?
Oh the pressure's getting to me. Believe in yourself.
Okay. One ethical question you think will define the next 10 years?
It's a hard question, so quick fire. Just because we could know it, should we know it?
Okay, just because we shouldn't. So like what we could know it, we should know it.
Yeah. Just because we can, should we?
Deep. Finish the sentence. Science becomes powerful when
it is communicated.
Hey, I love that. Thank you very much, Emma. That was brilliant. I've enjoyed this chat with you. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. At the moment, what are you doing and how can people find you and find your work?
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thanks for having me on. You can find me with my unusual surname through all search engines. So you'll find my university email address there, my website as well. I do lots of work making science more accessible and engaging to lots of different people. So whether that's giving talks or speaking on things like this, podcasts like this. So that's probably the best way to find me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been great having you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. We'll see it. We'll probably have another chat again soon, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't leave it 6 years though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for listening,
Bye.
and see you guys later. Take care. Bye-bye.